The most fragile part of your brand new Pixel 10 Pro XL phone is going to be the screen, and naturally you want to protect it with the best screen protector possible. And not all screen protectors are the same. Trust me, I've tested hundreds of screen protectors over the years, and the last thing you want to do is waste your time and money on a screen protector that's not going to protect your phone the best. Well, this video is going to save you a ton of time and money because I reviewed what I think are some of the top screen protector choices for your brand new phone. We're going to go through the full installation. We're going to see how they fit, how they feel. I'm also going to be doing a drop and a scratch test to see how durable each screen protector is. And at the end of the video, I'm going to let you know which one of these screen protectors are worthy enough to be used on my personal phone. So let's get into it. So really quick, I just want to let everybody know that before I do any tempered glass screen protector installation, I will thoroughly clean the screen off with an alcohol wipe and then dry it off so I don't have to show it to you every single time. And then here we have the SPIGEN GLAStr EZ Fit tempered glass. So we get 2 tempered glass screen protectors with installation guides and our installation packet and squeegee. Then take one of your installation guides, making sure that where it says top on the screen protector is going towards the top of your phone where your camera is. We're going to peel off the back sticker here and just take this whole thing and press it over the top of your phone. Slide your finger up the middle here and wait 30 seconds. After the 30 seconds, hold down on the guide and we're going to peel up the sticker here. And then just pull off the top of the guide and then lift up on the top plastic cover. And we do have a couple bubbles on the center here, you can see right there. And we're just going to use the squeegee to push those out. They went out pretty easily, and we'll just go around the corners to make sure that it's down, and then we'll take a look. So installation was super easy. You can see that there is a slight gap all the way around the phone for case compatibility, which we will be testing out. You can see that it is a full coverage screen protector, so it does cover the front camera. And as far as the touch, nice and smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. And for fingerprints, it seems to do a great job at fingerprint rejection as well. I don't see any fingerprints on the screen whatsoever. So now let's test out our fingerprint sensor. Now I've already registered my fingerprints, but if you're having trouble with your fingerprints, they do suggest that you re-register your fingerprints twice, and then you can also turn up the touch sensitivity for using a screen protector, and I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. So let's test out our fingerprints. So that worked that time perfectly again. And no issues there. So if you are having issues with your fingerprints, go into settings. We're going to go into our security and privacy. If you go down to device unlock, we'll click on that. We're going to click on our fingerprint and put in your code. And at the bottom here, it says optimize for screen protector. I have that turned on and it seems to work really well. So 2 things, if you're having trouble with your fingerprint sensor working, register your finger twice, 2 different times, and also turn on optimize for screen protector and you shouldn't have any issues. So the screen protector seems to be working great with the in-display fingerprint sensor. Let's take a look at our camera really quick. Turn this around. That is super clean. Very nice. Nice and sharp. Your pictures should also come out great using your selfie camera. You can see that the screen is crystal clear. It doesn't have any anti-glare properties, so you see the light really bad reflecting in the tempered glass, but touch working great. No issues whatsoever with touch. Now let's take a look at the screen as if we're looking at it through polarized sunglasses. And you can see that there is a slight tinge to the tempered glass. And if we twist and turn, it can get a little worse or better, depending on how you're looking at your phone. But if you're looking at it dead on, it shouldn't be too bad. It's when you look at your phone from off to the side that the rainbow gets a lot worse. And also to note, I do not have my face set up for facial recognition. So the fingerprints were working the whole time on the screen protector. It was not detecting my face at all. So with that being said, let's set up my face and see how well it works with the screen protector here. And we're done. So now let's test out the facial recognition. Perfect. That was super quick. I mean, all you had to do is just look at the phone and it goes right to your home screen. That's awesome. All right, so that's definitely working really well. And also, if we take a close look at the screen protector here, you can see that it's not going to cut off any part of your screen either. You can see that it just comes over to the edge of the camera, and if we go back, you can actually see some of the black portion of the screen here on each side, even in the corners there. So it's not cutting off any of your screen either. And also the edges of the glass are rounded off, so it's nice and smooth for when you're swiping. Works really well. And then for testing out case compatibility, I've got a couple of my favorite cases here. One is the SPIGEN Rugged Armor case. That fits perfectly. We do have a slight gap on the bottom of the case here and at the top, and then on the sides it seems to pretty much come right up to the edge of the case itself. I don't see any lifting, no bubbles. It fits perfectly. So if you're going to be using the SPIGEN Rugged Armor case, it should fit perfectly with the screen protector. And on the back here, you can see that even though we do have the rear glass on here, there's still a raised edge for extra protection there too. And let's test out the Mouse Limitless 6.0 case. And even with a non-SPIGEN case, it's still case compatible. We can see that there is a slight gap even now on the edges of the case, as well as the top and the bottom. So it's not even touching the case. So whether you're going to be using a SPIGEN case or another case, such as this mouse case here, it should be compatible with this screen protector. So everything's looking great for the screen protector so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. All right, so for this test, we're going to be dropping a 2.4 ounce steel metal ball at a starting height of 2 feet. If the screen protector doesn't crack, we'll move it up foot by foot until it eventually does. So here we go, 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 5 feet. 5 feet. So this screen protector lasted up until a 5-foot drop, which is not bad. Now let's move on to the scratch test. Regular tempered glass starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6, so we're going to start off our test with the number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6, and then finally a number 7. And if we take a closer look, you can see that there are no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at a number 6 and deeper at a number 7. So scratch resistance is pretty standard for tempered glass. So installation for both these protectors was super easy. It also does seem to be case friendly. It works perfect with the in-display fingerprint sensor. It lasted up until a 5-foot drop, and scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. And then here we have a clear tempered glass screen protector by TORRAS. So we get 2 tempered glass screen protectors with 1 installation guide, 2 installation packets, and a squeegee. So take your installation guide, turn it over, and make sure that this little arrow is through the bottom portion of the guide here. And then also, when you turn it over, make sure that the top is going towards the camera on your phone. Then just press this whole thing over the top of your phone like this. Then hold down on the sides of the guide with one hand and pull out the tab with the other. And it should automatically start to adhere to your phone. Once that's done, we can lift up on the guide here. And remember, don't throw this away because you have 1 more tempered glass. So we do have 1 little bubble in the top portion of the screen here. You guys can see right there. We can easily use the squeegee to get that out. Everything else on the screen looks great. No bubbles, no lifting. There's also a slight gap all the way around the phone for case compatibility. The edges are also rounded off, and touch feels nice and smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. As far as fingerprints goes, picks up very minor smudges on the screen that you can very easily wipe away. This is also a full coverage screen protector, so it does cover your camera. So let's test out our fingerprints. Also to note that I'm not using the Face ID. So I either use the pattern or my fingerprint. So we'll test out my fingerprints. Working fine there. Yeah, so fingerprints seem to be working just fine, and I don't have to re-register them. But if your fingerprints aren't working, just re-register them and maybe turn on the extra sensitivity because you're using a tempered glass screen protector. You can also see that the screen is crystal clear, touch working fine. Let's take a look at our front camera here. Front camera looks nice and clear, no issues there. Now let's take a look at the screen as if we're looking at it through polarized sunglasses. And looking at it dead on looks pretty clear. If we start to turn it, you can see a slight rainbow. And if you move it up and down, it gets a little worse. But if you're looking at it normally, you should have a pretty good experience. Now let's put it in our case. Seems to fit the case perfectly. Again, slight gap on the top and the bottom of the screen, nothing on the sides, no lifting, no bubbles. Just looks really good. And also, if you look closely at the screen protector does go over the edges of the screen, so none of the screen itself is getting cut off. So another good screen protector so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. All right, here we go at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 5 feet. 6 feet. 6 feet. All right, so the TORRAS lasted up until a 6-foot drop, pretty good. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So we're going to start off our test with the number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And then finally, number 7. And if we take a closer look, you can see that there are no scratches at the number 5. There are very light at a number 6 and about the same at a number 7. So even though scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass, it's very light. So it's a little bit better than regular tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was super easy. It also does seem to be case friendly. It also seems to work really well with the in-display fingerprint sensor. It lasted up until a 6-foot drop, and scratch resistance, it seems to be a little bit better than regular tempered glass, even though it still scratches at a level 6. So with all that in mind, I would definitely use this for my own personal phone, and I would feel comfortable recommending it to you. And then here we have a clear tempered glass screen protector by AMFILM. We get 2 tempered glass screen protectors with installation guides and 2 installation packets with dust stickers. So after you clean off the screen, take one of your dust stickers. We're going to lay it down over the top of the whole screen here, just like that. Then take one of your installation guides with your tempered glass, making sure that where it says top goes towards the camera on your phone. We're going to peel off the underside protector, remove the dust sticker, then put the whole guide on top of your phone and press it into place. Then run your finger down the top to the bottom. You can see it adhering to the screen. Looks like there will be some bubbles. And just lift up on the guide and we'll take a look here. So I can see that I got some dust underneath the screen, and we have a bubble right here that we should be able to press out pretty easily just with our thumb here. You can see the bubble. Let's press that out. Yes, that went out pretty easily. We just have this one little piece of dust in the middle of our screen. So we'll wipe off our screen really quick. And we'll take a look. So it looks pretty good. We do have a cutout for our front camera, so it won't interfere with our facial recognition or our selfies. The edges are also rounded off. As far as the touch, feels nice and smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. And as far as fingerprints goes, it does pick up some slight smudges. I don't know if you guys can see those right there, but you can just very easily wipe those away with minimal effort. It also does seem to have a slight gap around the edge of the phone for case compatibility, which we will be testing out. First, let's test out our fingerprints. That seemed to work perfectly fine. And the facial recognition is not working right now. You can see I'm looking at it. So it's only using my fingerprints. Seems to be working just fine. Yeah, no problems with fingerprints. So I already had my fingerprints registered and they seem to still be working. But if yours aren't working, I would recommend re-registering your fingerprints and also turn up the optimization if you're using a tempered glass screen protector, which we are. And if you go into your settings, go into fingerprint, you'll see that optimized for screen protector is turned on. So I would recommend doing that. You can see that the screen is crystal clear. Touch is working great. No issues there. Now let's take a look at the screen as if we're looking at it through polarized sunglasses. And you can see the screen looks pretty good. I don't see any rainbow. And if we turn it, that's when you start to see some of the rainbow. But if you're looking at it dead on, you should have a pretty good experience. I don't see any rainbow whatsoever here. And also, the screen protector does not cut off any of the screen. You can see clearly that the screen protector goes over into the black part of the screen, so you're not getting anything cut off, which is definitely a plus too. So let's try out our cases. This is the SPIGEN Rugged Armor, and it seems to fit this case perfectly. I mean, it comes right up to the edge of the case itself. We have a slight gap on the bottom and on the top, but it comes right up to the edge on the sides. I don't see any lifting, no bubbles, so it fits this case perfectly. Now let's test out our mouse case. This one should be even better, and it is. So now there's a gap all the way around the screen, so it's not even touching the case. So the screen protector seems to work perfectly fine with cases and should be compatible with most cases as well. So everything's looking good for this screen protector so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. So here we go, 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 5 feet. 6 feet. 6 feet. Alright, the screen protector lasted up until a 6-foot drop, which is not bad. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So because tempered glass usually starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6, we're going to start off our tests with the number 5. Then we'll move on to number 6. And then finally number 7. And if we take a closer look, you can see that there are no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at a number 6 and deeper at a number 7. So scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was pretty easy. It also does seem to be case friendly. It worked perfectly fine with the in-display fingerprint sensor. It also lasted up until a 6-foot drop, and scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. So based on that, I would use and also recommend this tempered glass screen protector. And then here we have the SPIGEN GLAStr EZ Fit Privacy Tempered Glass Screen Protectors. You get 2 tempered glass screen protectors with installation guides, an installation packet, and a squeegee. So take one of your screen protectors, making sure where it says top goes towards the camera on your phone. We're going to peel off the bottom protector here. Then just place the whole thing over your phone like this. Press it down into place. And then press and slide your finger up the middle of the screen and wait 30 seconds. Once the 30 seconds are up, hold down on the guide, and we're going to peel up the sticker here. Then press your finger inside the guide and lift up on one of the ends, and then peel off the top protector. They also want you to know to re-register your fingerprints. We might not have to though, so I'm going to test that out. And it looks like we do have a bubble in the middle of the screen here, right there. And we're good everywhere else. So I'm just going to use the squeegee to kind of push this out. And then run it along the edges to kind of make sure there are no bubbles there either. And I think that looks pretty good. So there's the installation. The edges are also rounded off, which is nice. And you can see that it does dull the screen down a little bit. So you're probably going to want to turn up the brightness pretty much as you can to make the screen look normal. As far as the touch, feels nice and smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. And you can see that the screen is nice and clear until you try to look at it from the side and it just kind of disappears. So it'll keep everything on your phone nice and private if somebody is sitting next to you. But if somebody's looking over your shoulder, it doesn't have any effect. It's only from these sides. And as far as fingerprints goes, it does seem to pick up some fingerprints on the screen, but you can just very easily wipe those away. And there's also a little part on the screen protector that doesn't have any privacy film or glass, so it doesn't interfere with your Face ID and your selfies. And it also looks like there is a pretty good gap all the way around the phone for case compatibility. We'll test that too. Let's test out our fingerprints. So that works perfectly fine. Yeah, so fingerprints seem to be working. If yours aren't working, just re-register your fingerprints and maybe turn on the screen optimization for your using a screen protector. Now let's take a look at the screen as if we're looking at it through polarized sunglasses. And you can see that it looks pretty clear. Let's see what happens if we turn it to the side. You can see that there is kind of like a rainbow effect if you're not looking dead on. But not too bad. So if you're looking at it directly onto the screen, you should have a pretty good experience even if you're wearing polarized sunglasses. And the screen protector also doesn't cut off any of your screen. You can see that it comes over the black edges of the phone, so you don't have to worry about losing any screen real estate. And let's check out our camera just to see what that looks like. And the camera looks nice and clear. Don't see any issues there. Working perfectly. Now let's put it in our case. And it looks to fit the case perfectly too. Comes right up to the sides of the case. There's only a slight gap on the very bottom and the top. No lifting, no bubbles. Fits pretty good, so it should be compatible with most cases. So everything with the screen is looking great. So everything with the screen protector is looking really good. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. All right, so we're going to start off the test at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 'So there is a little mark there, but it's not cracked yet. 5 feet. 6 feet. 6 feet. All right, pretty good. The SPIGEN privacy glass lasted up until a 6-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. We'll start off with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And then finally, number 7. And if we take a closer look, you can see that there are no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at a number 6 and a little deeper at a number 7. So scratch resistance is pretty standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was super easy. It also does seem to be case friendly. It seemed to work perfectly fine with the in-display fingerprint sensor. It lasted up until a 6-foot drop, and scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. So if you're looking for a privacy tempered glass screen protector, I could recommend the one by SPIGEN. And then here we have the RINGKE EZ Slide Clear Tempered Glass. So we get 2 tempered glass screen protectors with 1 installation guide and 2 installation packets. So take your screen protector with the installation guide and flip it over and make sure that this little tab here is underneath the plastic part here, because we're going to pull this out. And then also make sure that where it says top is going towards the camera on your phone. All you need to do is simply press this down over the top of your phone like this, hold down on each side, and then pull out on the tab here. So we're going to press and slide our finger here, and then press and slide your finger upward. And you should be able to see it adhering to your screen. Looks like we have 1 bubble right here. I just touched it and now it's gone away. So that's good. So press down on the middle of the guide and then lift up on one end. And then don't throw this away, because you can use this with your other tempered glass screen protector that came with the kit. So we'll take a look at the screen. Looks pretty nice. We do have some slight bubbles on the top here. So I'm just going to use the squeegee that came with it, and we'll kind of just squeegee that out. And then just go along the edges just to make sure that it's down the way that it should be and there's no more bubbles. And we'll take a look. So this is a full coverage screen protector. It covers the camera. It also does seem to have a slight gap all the way around the phone for case compatibility. The edges are also rounded off. As far as touch, super smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. As far as fingerprints, it does pick up some fingerprints on the screen, very little, and you can just very easily wipe those away with minimal effort. So now let's test out our fingerprints. And the phone seems like it's off. Okay, let's test out our fingerprints. That worked. Works fine as well. Yeah, fingerprints seem to be working fine. So if you already had your fingerprints registered, you can try them. If it's not working, re-register your fingerprints and maybe turn on the extra touch sensitivity for your tempered glass. But as you can see, the screen looks crystal clear. Touch working beautifully, no issues there. Now let's take a look at the screen as if we're looking at through polarized sunglasses. And you can see that there is a slight bit of a rainbow, kind of like a greenish tinge. But if you're looking at it dead on, it's not too bad. It's just that when you start to twist and turn the phone, that's when the rainbow starts getting really bad. But again, dead on, there's really not a lot of differences, maybe a slight hint of green. We'll take a look at our front camera here. Front camera looks nice and clear. Don't see any issues there either. Now we'll put it in our case. So this is the SPIGEN Rugged Armor case, and it seems to fit pretty much perfectly. We just have a slight gap on the top and the bottom of the phone here, not so much on the sides. Don't see any lifting, no bubbles, so it should be compatible with most cases. So another great screen protector that's looking good so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. All right, we're going to start off our test at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 4 feet. All right, so the RINGKE tempered glass lasted up until a 4-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So we're going to start off our test with the number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And finally a number 7. And if we take a closer look, you can see that there are no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at a number 6 and deeper at a number 7. So scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was really easy. It also does seem to be case friendly. It seems to work fine with the in-display fingerprint sensor. It only lasted up until a 4-foot drop, and scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. And then here we have ULTRAGLASS Clear tempered glass screen protector. So you get 2 tempered glass screen protectors with an installation guide. 2 installation packets, and a squeegee. So take your installation guide and flip it over and make sure that this little plastic piece here, the arrow, is going in the little slot underneath here. And also make sure that when you flip it over, that the top portion here is going towards the camera on your phone. And then just simply put this over the top of your phone like this, press it into place, then hold down on the guide just on the edges with one hand and pull out the tab with the other. It should automatically start to adhere to your phone. Just wait till that's done. And then we'll lift up on the guide. Remember, don't throw this away because you can use this with your other tempered glass screen protector. And we'll take a look at the screen. Installation looks great. It was super easy to do. I also don't see any bubbles, no lifting. So it seems like it's ready to go. The edges aren't as rounded as some of the other tempered glass screen protectors, but it doesn't seem to catch. So I guess it's not an issue. As far as the touch, super smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. And as far as fingerprints goes, it does seem to do a pretty good job at keeping down fingerprints. There's only some slight smudges on the screen. Barely even anything to worry about. This is also a full coverage screen protector, so it does cover your camera. And there seems to be a pretty good gap all the way around the phone for case compatibility. So let's test out our fingerprint sensor. That seemed to work fine. Again. Yeah, and I also don't have my facial recognition turned on, just so you guys know. I could look at it right here and it's not doing anything. You either need to put in your pattern or the fingerprint, which I just did. And it seems to be working fine. So if your fingerprint is not working, just re-register your fingerprint and maybe even turn on the extra sensitivity for your phone screen. But as you can see, screen is nice and clear. Touch working beautifully, no issues there. Let's take a look at our front camera. Front camera looks super clear, no issues there. Let's take a look at the screen as if we're looking at it through polarized sunglasses. And you can see that it looks pretty clear. Even if we twist and turn it, there's only a slight rainbow effect. If you turn it up, like twist it up and down, there is more of a rainbow, but from side to side it looks pretty good. So that's definitely a plus. So let's put it in our case. And it seems to fit this case perfectly. Again, this is the SPIGEN Rugged Armor case. It seems like it comes right up to the edges of the case on the side. There's only a slight gap on the top and the bottom of the screen. No lifting, no bubbles. So that's definitely a plus. I particularly like the screen protectors that don't have a camera cutout because that's just some places for dust and dirt to collect. As long as the camera's clean, you shouldn't have any problems with your selfies. But everything's looking good for this screen protector so far, so now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. All right, here we go at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 4 feet. All right, so the Ultra Glass lasted up until a 4-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So we'll start off our test with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And then finally a number 7. And if we take a closer look, you can see that there are no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at a number 6 and a little deeper at a number 7. So scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was super easy. It also does seem to be case friendly. It seemed to work perfectly fine with the in-display fingerprint sensor. It only lasted up until a 4-foot drop, and scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. And then here we have SUPERSHIELDZ clear tempered glass. You get 3 tempered glass screen protectors and an installation kit. So this screen protector doesn't come with any installation guide, so we're going to have to use these guide stickers. So you're going to want your tempered glass screen protector to look something like this. Make sure that the cutout for the camera is going towards the camera on your phone. Peel off the underside protector and then use the guide stickers to line this up the best you can. You can see it starts to adhere to the screen. And we can remove our stickers. All right, so let's take a look at our screen. Installation looks pretty good. Don't see any bubbles, no lifting. The edges are also rounded off. There does seem to be a slight gap all the way around the phone for case compatibility. We have our cutout for our camera, so we don't have to worry about interference with our selfies or our facial recognition. As far as fingerprints, it does seem to pick up some fingerprints on the screen, and you guys can see that here. But we can just wipe that away with minimal effort. There we go. Now let's see if the in-display fingerprint sensor works with our phone. I do not have the facial recognition activated right now, so it's going to be all fingerprint. So that worked perfectly fine. Worked again. And it works fine. So I already had my fingerprints registered, so I didn't have to do them. But if you are having issues with your fingerprints, just redo them or turn on the optimize for using a screen protector in the settings. Screen looks crystal clear, touch working perfectly fine, and it feels just like the glass that's on the phone. Now let's take a look at the screen as if we were looking at it through polarized sunglasses. So we can see that there is like a slight yellowish tinge to the screen. If we turn it, the rainbow gets really bad. But if you're looking at it dead on, there's just a very slight like tinge of orange or yellow. Not too bad. The screen also doesn't look to cut off any of the phone screen either. You can see that it just comes over the black edge of the phone. So that's definitely a plus as well. And then let's put it in our case. Now let's put it in our case. So this is the SPIGEN rugged armor case, and it looks like it fits pretty good. Comes right up to the edges of the case on the sides, and there's just a slight gap on the top and the bottom. No lifting, no bubbles. So it should be compatible with most cases. So this screen protector is looking pretty good so far. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. All right, we're starting off at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 4 feet. All right, so the SUPERSHIELDZ tempered glass lasted up until a 4-foot drop, and now let's move on to the scratch test. So we're going to start off our test with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And then finally a number 7. If we take a closer look, you can see that there are no scratches at the number 5. There are slight at a number 6 and almost the same at a number 7. So scratch resistance is pretty standard for tempered glass. So installation for this screen protector wasn't super hard, but it definitely could have been a lot easier with a guide. It seems to work really well with the in-display fingerprint sensor. It's also case friendly. It lasted up until a 4-foot drop, and scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. It doesn't have the best drop protection, but it's a fairly decent screen protector. And then here we have a clear tempered glass screen protector by WSKEN. So we get 2 tempered glass screen protectors with 1 installation guide, a squeegee, an installation mat, and an installation packet. So take your installation guide with your tempered glass screen protector in it, and make sure that this little tab here is in between the 2 plastic pieces on the bottom of your guide, and then make sure that where it says top is going towards the camera on your phone. We'll just press this over the top of our phone like that. Hold down on each side of the guide with one hand and pull out the tab with the other. Then slide one of your fingers across the bottom and slowly up the top. Then we'll lift up on our guide, and it looks like we do have some bubbles on the sides here. You guys can see there's a couple bubbles right here on the bottom and on the sides. We'll just use our squeegee to kind of get those out. So this screen protector was loaded with these little micro bubbles on the side, and you guys can see there's some down in the corner here. There's some over here on this side. There's some right here, some over here, some at the top, You guys can see that. But these bubbles just kind of don't want to come out. They might disappear. See, you can see some right there too. They might disappear over time, but I haven't had this happen on any other tempered glass screen protector that I installed, so that might be a little cause for some concern. As far as the edges, they are rounded off. There's also a slight gap all the way around the phone for case compatibility. This also does cover the front camera as well. As far as touch, feels nice and smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. And as far as fingerprints, it picks up some slight smudges on the screen, but you can very easily wipe those away. No problems there. So now let's test out our fingerprint sensor, and just so you know, the Face ID is not turned on, so it's all my fingerprint. So that's working. Working again. Yeah, so fingerprints seem to be working fine, and if yours aren't working, just re-register your fingerprints, and I would also recommend turning on the extra sensitivity for your screen. But you can see that the screen is crystal clear. Touch is working perfectly fine, no issues there. Now let's take a look at our front camera. Front camera looks nice and clear, don't see any issues there either. Now let's take a look at the screen as if we're looking at it through polarized sunglasses. And you can see that there is a slight green tinge. If we twist and turn it, the rainbow gets a lot worse. And if you're looking at it straight on, there's still like a slight green tinge. Not the worst, but it's not the end of the world either. Let's put it in our case. Seems to fit the case perfectly. Again, comes right up to the case on the side. There was a slight gap on the top and the bottom of the phone, but I don't see any lifting. No bubbles other than the bubbles that are already on the screen. So everything's looking pretty good. Now let's move on to the scratch and the drop test. All right, here we go at 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 4 feet. Alright, so the WSKEN screen protector only lasted up until a 4-foot drop. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So we're going to start off our test with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6. And then finally a number 7. And if we take a closer look, you can see that there are no scratches at the number 5. There are light at a number 6 and a little deeper at a number 7. So scratch resistance seems to be pretty standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector was pretty easy. Like I mentioned before, there were those little micro bubbles on the screen that might be cause for concern because none of the other tempered glass screen protectors that I installed had those little bubbles. But it also does seem to be case friendly, and it also seems to work perfectly fine with the in-display fingerprint sensor. But it only lasted up until a 4-foot drop, and scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. And then here we have a tempered glass screen protector made by Magic John. And just so you guys know, this particular tempered glass screen protector is made for the Google Pixel 9 Pro XL, but it should work perfectly fine with the 10. So you get 2 tempered glass screen protectors with installation guides, an installation squeegee, and 2 installation packets. Then take one of your installation guides, making sure that where it says top is going towards the camera on your phone. Just press this over the top of your phone, just like that, super easy. Then take one hand, hold gently on the sides of the guide, and we're going to pull out the tab on the bottom here. Once that's out, run your finger down the middle here and then swipe it up the top. Then once that's done, we're going to peel up the sticker in the middle here. So again, hold on to the guide and just pull this up. And it looks like it's starting to adhere to the screen. We might need to help it along just a little bit here. Then we're going to lift up on the guide. Then lift up on the top protector. And it does look like we have a slight bubble right at the kind of bottom here. You guys can see right there. And I'll just use the little squeegee to get that out. So everything looks good so far. Let's give it a little wipe down. Looks like it's a full coverage screen protector, so there's no cutout for your front camera. The edges are also rounded off, which is nice and smooth. As far as the glass, super smooth, just like the glass that's on the phone. As far as fingerprints goes, seems to pick up some slight fingerprints on the screen here, not too bad at all. You can very easily wipe those away. There we go. Now let's test out our fingerprint. So as you saw, the face unlock works super quick. Yeah, so super quick face unlock. Let's turn that off so it doesn't interfere with our fingerprint sensor testing. So I've turned that off so it doesn't use my face unlock anymore. So now we'll test out the fingerprints. So that worked after a couple times. It's not working very well. It is working, but not very well. So what we're going to do is we're going to re-register our fingerprints here. And also I would recommend turning on Optimize for Screen Protector because it just helps with your fingerprints. Let's add a fingerprint here. So it's having a little bit of problems here. Yeah, so it seems to be having problems. Press firmly on the sensor. I am. Yeah, it's having a lot of problems registering my fingers here. Just trying to do whatever I can to get it to keep going. Okay, finally done. So let's test out our fingerprints one more time here. So it's still having some problems. Yeah, it's having issues with fingerprints. So that's definitely not good. So one down. So as far as the clearness of the screen, it's super clear. Touch is working perfectly fine. No issues there. Now let's take a look at our camera here. The camera looks nice and clear, so there shouldn't be any issues with the front selfie cameras. And let's take a look at the screen as we're looking at it through polarized sunglasses. You can see there's a slight rainbow, not horrible. If we twist and turn, it gets a little worse. But if you're looking at it dead on, it's not horrible. So not too bad there. And let's test out the case compatibility. I've got my SPIGEN rugged armor case here. And it looks like it fits the case almost perfectly. There's just a slight gap on the left side, on the top, a little bit at the bottom, and on the right. It pretty much comes right up to the edge of the case. On the sides, just a little bit more gap on the top and the bottom. So that's definitely not bad. And then let's try out our mouse case. This is the Mouse Limitless 6.0, and it seems to fit this even better. There's even more of a gap all the way around the screen. So the screen protector should be compatible with most cases. All right, now let's move on to the drop and the scratch test. So here we go, 2 feet. Moving on to 3 feet. 4 feet. 5 feet. 6 feet. It hasn't cracked yet. There's a mark, but it hasn't cracked. 7 feet. 7 feet. So this screen protector lasts up until a 7-foot drop, which is pretty impressive. Now let's move on to the scratch test. So regular tempered glass starts to scratch around a Mohs hardness number 6, so we're going to start off our test with a number 5. Then we'll move on to a number 6, and then finally a number 7. And if we take a closer look, you can see that there are no scratches at the number 5, there are slight at a number 6, and just a little deeper at a number 7, so scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. So installation for the screen protector didn't seem to go as perfectly as it should. It seemed to need just a little bit of help completing. Also, the fingerprint sensor does not seem to work hardly at all with this tempered glass screen protector, which is definitely not good and probably a deal breaker for most people. It does seem to be case friendly. It lasted up until a 7-foot drop, and scratch resistance is standard for tempered glass. So it really is unfortunate that this screen protector does not work well with the in-display fingerprint sensor, because that's got to be a deal breaker for most people. I know it is for me, because why would you buy a tempered glass screen protector that doesn't work with the phone's functionality when there are other options out there that actually do work? If you guys made it this far in the video, thank you so much for all your support. And now I want you to be honest with me. Do you go protected, or do you carry a naked phone? Leave me the comment naked or protected to let me know that you're part of my end crew. So now that I've had a chance to test out all those screen protectors, I'm going to let you know which ones I thought were the absolute best and that I would use on my personal phone. So if you're looking for the best clear tempered glass screen protector, I would recommend either the TORRAS or the AMFILM. Both of these screen protectors lasted up until a 6-foot drop. They're also very easy to install, and they work great with the in-display fingerprint sensor. The main difference between these two is the TORRAS seem to have a little bit smoother installation process, and the scratch resistance also seemed to be slightly better on the TORRAS versus the AMFILM. But the TORRAS also costs a little bit more than the AMFILM, so that might be a determining factor for you as well. Then if you're looking for the best privacy glass, I would recommend going with the SPIGEN. The installation process was super smooth. It also works really well with the in-display fingerprint sensor. It's case friendly, it lasted up until a 6-foot drop, and it's also not super expensive. Now if there was a screen protector in this video that you didn't see that you'd like to recommend for future videos, let me know in the comments below. I'd also really like to know what your favorite screen protector was and why. And if you guys enjoyed the video, please let me know by hitting the like button, and I'd also recommend checking out my best and worst cases video that I did for the Pixel 10 Pro XL, and you can see that by clicking on the video you see on your screen right now. Thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.